You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com. You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com.
Welcome to the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast. This is episode number 213 of the San Antonio's favorite podcast. Jeremiah Morrell here, joined by co-host Dakota Davis, producer Chris Stayton. What we got going on today, Dakota?
Today's episode features Mr. Chris May from the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame, the executive director from the Hall of Fame. We're going to be talking to Chris about a little bit about his background, everything that he knows about basketball, why he loves basketball, and then, of course, the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame and the history behind it, what's going on there now, a little bit about the facility and his favorite things about it. So make sure you stick around and hear all of that.
This show is about our lives in rural Indiana. We're here to push your boundaries and make you think as individuals. Sometimes we'll provoke you, other times we'll make you laugh, but hopefully you'll always learn something new. We learned all kinds of new stuff in Patreon, Dakota. There's a good 20 minutes. We learned that you have an addiction that that I'm actually very concerned about.
That's right. Patreon.com/BossHog of Liberty. That's where you can go to find out what the heck Jeremiah is talking about.
Join the Patreon and then let us know how we should support Dakota to get through this problem.
That's right. I'll take anything that we can get.
Prayers, if nothing else.
Yeah, thoughts and prayers, please. Patreon.com/BossHog of Liberty. Once again, the tiers start at $5 a month, but they go all the way up to like $80 a month.
You can name your own price. We have people in all of those ranges. And there's people that just literally go in and say, hey, you know what? You're worth 72 cents a month to me. So that's what you get. And we'll give you the same treatment.
We encourage the tiers. But the different tiers come with different levels of perks and different things that you can get in the mail. Like whenever we had the episode 200 special, we were all wearing bow ties. So we personalized the bow ties and we sent them to all of our highest donors that provided their addresses. That is, some of them didn't provide their address. That's okay. It might not be any of our business, but they don't want to. They missed out on a bow tie if they didn't give it. So that's whatever.
Menacing little yellow bow ties.
You also get show notes ahead of the show so you can follow along as we're talking in real time. And there are also some links in there so like you can see where we pull the information from as I'm writing the show notes. That's where all that is. There's also a super secret Facebook group that you get added to. And like we just said, a 20 to 25 minute bonus episode each and every week. And if you sign up at $50 or more a month, we give you a shout out at the front of every episode. Those folks are Miss Christy Avery from all the way in Fort Wayne, Jonathan Phillips, our favorite car dealer in all of Indiana, Mr. Anthony Meyer, who is saving the world by driving his Kenworth truck, and the Fiddler's Green Cigar Company.
It's not a Peterbilt.
It's not a Peterbilt.
John Phillips is selling my parents a car tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
Another Boss Hog car out the door.
Hey, Joyce, if you could do me a favor and tell him that Dakota Davis sent you. That would be great. I would get $100 check in the mail.
You want the money. Isn't that cute of you? All right.
I got a family to feed, Jeremiah. You just have a dog.
I have a wife, a mortgage, a podcast.
Yeah, it is what it is. I guess I'll survive.
Dakota actually has a family and an addiction.
Yeah. I mean, that's
to support. Yeah, come on now.
You got to pick one. One of these days, it's going to come down to your addiction or your son. You're going to have to make that decision.
It's me or the gum.
You heard it right. Gum, not the other thing. Gum. Chris, are you sorry you're here yet?
Not at all.
This has been okay?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
This is not the most controversial podcast you've been a part of to this point.
Probably. Man, No.
Okay.
No,
All
we're
right.
good. We're good.
That was a solid maybe.
Yeah, it was. That was me trying to dodge the first question.
Yeah, Hammer and Nigel are worse, aren't they?
For sure, though. Let's be honest. That's not even a question.
No, it's good. I've been a viewer now to be on this side of the camera. It's cool.
Welcome.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You had a total shocked face when you came through the door because we don't have a script door to tell you which one to come through. And then I came in late and didn't open the other side of the building that folks typically try to come into. So you popped into the studio and, oh, thank God. Because you don't know what you're coming into back here.
I'm like, well, I could see that the door was unlocked. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to peek in here.
See what
I hope
happens.
These are the
Yep.
right people. I hope
Yep.
this is the right spot.
Yeah, you never know. It could be, you never know what you could walk into.
Yeah.
It's
We might be the upstairs apartment. How embarrassing.
I'm just glad I didn't walk into a room full of people with menthol gum.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Yeah.
it could have been very
Could be
troubling.
way worse.
Could have been very troubling.
We also have Boss Hog of Liberty merchandise that's sold at T-Chip, tchip.com/BHO1234 or BHO mug. All of those links are going to be on the link tree that our wonderful producer is going to be putting in the live stream chat right now. So if you're only listening to the audio, make sure you head over to Facebook and find those links.
The link tree's right there on bosshogofliberty.com as well.
It is.
So
The big problem is, since I've never been here since the link tree, I don't know where Zach keeps it.
it's okay. It's in the chat. Zach took care of it for you.
Look at Zach.
From the road, he's texting and driving on the way to North Carolina, just for you.
We love you,
Problem
Zach.
solved.
We miss you.
Problem solved. He misses Zach. He does not miss Jesse. You and Jesse have been having a feud, and neither one of you show up at the same time just to work it out.
Hey, guess what? Who's fixed the audio every time that there's a problem?
Either one of you makes it work. It's just you literally physically plug cables in different spots. I'm enjoying it greatly.
Super frustrating, Jesse.
Can we talk with Chris
I
now?
set all this stuff up.
Right.
All right, yeah.
he's far more interesting than anything
Take a
I
deep
have to
breath.
say.
That's not true at all.
It's so much fun to wind up Dakota and just get the rage spinning, and then it's something he can't deal with.
I don't have my gum here to take the edge off.
This is a code 8, maybe it might even level 10.
He's going
Might
home
even
to find a 9 or a 10. Yeah.
might even need
I'm
level
about to
10.
open the 10s on this one. Once again, Boss Hog of Liberty on Patreon. That's where you can go to find out what that inside joke is all about. We have a lot of Patreon members who probably haven't listened to that. Maybe they're just like now getting into the regular episode.
Yeah.
They're also curious.
Well, they
That's
should have
what you
watched
get for
live.
skipping ahead.
They should have watched live. All right,
All right.
Chris. So you're from here, allegedly. Maze. The flashing yellow light.
Define
between
here.
Central Indiana, East Central Indiana. This is you.
So if folks are from like Indy, I say I'm from Rushville.
Sure.
If they're from East Central Indiana, I would say Mays. And if they're from like Henry or Rush counties, I would say I'm from Raleigh, technically.
Oh,
But you know,
Raleigh.
you say Raleigh, and everybody says you grew up in North Carolina. You know, you just don't want to confuse people that way. So
it's like that's
Raleigh, Mays, Rushville.
It's about 4 miles east of Henderson.
Oh wow, we're really diving into the map now. Yeah, lots of locations there.
Little map dots.
All
Yes.
these places that don't really exist anymore.
I'm from Newcastle, but I actually grew up just outside of Messick. So yeah, I'm with you. I
You
understand
this. Yeah, you speak the same language.
Yeah, somebody that used to have a post office 70 or 80 years ago. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true. Yeah.
I'm from Dunreath, and at least they still have their post office
For now.
for now. There's like 70 of them.
And a nice smooth highway right now.
Yeah, that's true.
No lane striping though. That's coming eventually.
All the staying road construction is driving us people that live in Spiceland crazy. We're trapped.
You can't get out of there. Yeah, you are truly trapped.
Can't get in, can't get out. It's horrible.
I was coming home from North Vernon. We were just not getting to Chris at all. I was coming home from North Vernon yesterday, and I stopped at the cheap gas station, the Sunoco there. Stopped, got my $2.95 a gallon gas when it was $3.25 in Newcastle. Saved myself 30 cents a gallon. Big time savings. And then I waited for a good 3 or 4 minutes for a truck to turn in front of me, and I finally said the heck with it. And I drove south, and I took the back roads back to Newcastle because I gave up.
It's horrible there. It's so bad. All right, Chris, we'll get into your backstory now. That was
I enjoyed buying cheap gas too. So I mean, we can go with that if you want.
It's Spiceland Fuels in Spiceland.
No, I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about the Sunoco.
There's not a Sunoco. We have a Casey's General Store, and we have a Spiceland Fuels.
You realize that the great land grabber Darren Jacobs took all the way up to I-70 So you have a Mr. Fuel, you have a Sunoco, and you have a Flying J. Well, they do in the tax base.
You should have stopped at Spiceland Fuels.
That thiever. Oh, they don't have the $2.95 gas.
It's cheaper. They always are 1 cent cheaper than anything.
They're cheaper than Casey's. No, that's not true. You are fake news.
It's been that way since it's been Spiceland Fuels. It
like
used to be Phillips
couple.
66.
Yeah, I know.
And they were more expensive as a Phillips 66. But now they're independent, so they know they got to try to siphon off. Just like you're siphoning gasoline, they got to siphon the customers. You know what they're doing. They're good capitalists.
I saw they got the Big Jack's Donut sign out there now, too.
They do.
All right. Can we please talk to Chris?
Really nice people.
I'm very uncomfortable.
We're just trying to support a local Henry County business before we start to support the Hall of Fame in Newcastle. So it all ties in. It's all very local, hyper localized content right now for all of our listeners all across the globe. Chris, you grew up here, like we just discussed.
Danny says, "Talk basketball, please." I want to know where he buys his gas now. I'm on
Here's
a
the
cliffhanger.
problem.
He looks like a Casey's guy.
Sunoco.
I think he just pleaded his Fifth Amendment.
He chose me.
That's really disappointing.
So
I thought this was going to be a good podcast, Chris.
Although I think my most recent fill up was at Spiceland Fuels. No BS. Most recent, but my regular stop down that direction is the Sunoco.
Well, the Sunoco does have the Taste of India restaurant, which we have been to for content purposes. It was on the show.
Yes.
We went there with James Neese.
It was
the first time my wife ever had
experience.
Indian food, and she fell in love with Indian food that day. It is really good.
I'll take your word for it. I'm not afraid of the gas, but I'm not.
It was good.
Buying anything else there.
Satara in Muncie is better. We'll get that out of the way.
So, Chris, you're from Mays. You've got a background in communications, in doing some radio work and other stuff in the past, and then this magical opportunity came along to come back to Henry County or back to this part of the world to join the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, funny how life works, right? Full circle. So I grew up,
and you're a kid from Raleigh, so of course basketball's in your blood.
There it is, absolutely. Yeah, had a goal in the barn growing up as a kid, and the church right up the hill had an outdoor court for the nicer weather months. So yeah, basketball was always who I was, I guess. And so I went to school, Rushville, for high school. We grew up on that.
So you played for the Lions?
I was a student manager.
Okay.
A water boy, you might call me, but
it's understandable.
But I'm 5'7", so
my brother played basketball. I was the video coach.
See,
right? So they would have me go run film on every game on the find myself a perch, and I ran video in every small gym.
Yeah.
In the ICBA league for about 3 years. So I'm with you. I understand.
Yep, absolutely.
You're still a part of the sport, but they don't let you play.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're smart for not letting a guy this size with no skill, no athleticism, no good qualities for a basketball player. I mean, they made the right decision.
Are you good at getting it there though?
I tell everybody I'm a little rusty now. I was a great shooter. I was not a scorer at all. Like if you just left me open, boom, I can hit that shot.
But if there's a defender,
but if somebody's guarding me, again, I'm 5'7", fully grown. I was a wee little dude in elementary and middle school. I wasn't tall enough to shoot over a guy. I couldn't jump high enough to shoot over him, and I wasn't fast enough to drive past him. So I was cooked if there was a defense.
I'm the opposite. I'm really good at guarding. I can be super aggressive, but I cannot get the ball towards the hoop to save my life. My hand-eye coordination is horrible.
A little bit of a Ron Artest, perhaps.
Sure, whatever that means.
Dakota is the least sports artist.
Dennis Rodman?
Yeah.
Okay,
I know Dennis Rodman.
Yeah.
I know the name Ron Artest.
What was his next name?
What do you mean?
He changed his name when he left him.
If I said Meta, can you finish that?
World Peace.
Oh yeah, Meta World Peace. I did know it. You're making me dig in pieces of my brain that got major cobwebs.
Well, if it wasn't for the menthol problem, that'll cause.
He's having withdrawal right now.
That'll do it. So you've been with the Hall of Fame for a while.
12 years, if that's a while.
12 years.
Yeah.
Man.
Where's the time gone?
That's crazy. So
You're telling me. In some ways, it feels like a year. In some ways, it feels like it's been 30 years. So
tell us, if somebody's listening for the first time and wants to know what the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame is, it's a big deal. People come from all over the world to visit Newcastle, Indiana. It's the home of the Hall of Fame. So I guess there's a two-part story. How did we end up with the Hall of Fame here? Because it happened before I moved to town as a kid. But I know it was a landmark deal. The vice president showed up for the dedication.
Yes.
And then what keeps drawing folks in?
Sure. My first stock answer is the Hall of Fame is really two things, to put it in perspective. One is the building we have here in Newcastle. The other is the organization of people that we have literally worldwide and certainly coast to coast here in the United States. So the Hall of Fame has been in existence since 1962, but it's only been here in Henry County in Newcastle since 1990. It's a fascinating story. They had just an office building essentially in Indianapolis. And this was back when downtown Indianapolis was not a place to go hang out or have a good time, or, it was not a destination, we'll say. And so at some point in the 1980s,
it was an administrative location. That was it at that time.
Well, they had a few plaques on a wall, but
Okay.
Again, there was no Circle Center Mall. There was no, people went downtown to work and they got the heck out of there after work. And there was none of the cultural amenities, the restaurants, all those sorts of things at that point. And yes, essentially it was an administrative facility for the Hall of Fame. They had a table big enough to have some meetings, but it was not a place. And they decided they wanted to have a destination. They wanted to have a museum. And so in the mid-1980s, the board of directors of the Hall of Fame made it known publicly that they were looking for locations that wanted to host the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame. To abbreviate the story a little bit, 13 cities and towns around Indiana made pitches, made bids. Anderson was one, Franklin was one, Crawfordsville. Indianapolis made a really shoddy effort to keep it in Indy. That's another inside story. Newcastle wins out, and of course we get visitors here all the time that say they're not from here. Why is this here? This isn't Indianapolis. Why is this here? And the shortened version is that there were a core group of local people that were absolutely hellbent and committed
to making it happen.
It happen.
I assume Danny Danielson was involved.
Absolutely. Yeah. Danny Danielson was the driving force. Paul Pryor of Mariana Bank was a big part of that process as well. Bill Brooks was at the Courier-Times. He became a big part of the local organizing committee and getting things together. And a confluence of things happened. The first is that a lot of these other cities and towns had empty buildings that here's an empty bank building. Have at it.
Yeah.
As we all know now, this was land. This was going to be a building constructed to the Hall of Fame's wishes or with whatever funding they could pull together. The second part is funding became a part of it, and that's where our food and beverage tax came from.
That was the origination.
I still hear that all the time about how your McDonald's money is paying for the Hall of Fame. It did originally. Not exactly that way anymore.
That ended about 20 years after it came to town, and now it's used for splash pads and other projects.
Right. By the way, that was a totally foreign concept back then. They had to go to the state legislature, get all kinds of permissions and authorities. Now Indianapolis in the metro area has it to pay for Lucas Oil and so on and so forth. But especially for a community this size, that was a big deal. And then the biggest part that I'm still proud of is they committed that the community would support it. And that sounds like a common sense answer. But I've talked to a lot of the people that were involved. They're still alive. And none of the other communities had that forethought. It was just, hey, here's this space. We'd love to have you.
Because you depend upon volunteers, folks to come out and actually staff it.
That is exactly correct. And that is exactly what happened, is that in the meeting, the final pitch meeting, Danny Danielson, Paul Pryor, and Bill Brooks sat down at the table and said, not only will we give you this land, not only will we help you raise money to build something on this land, we promise that the people of this community and county will volunteer to staff it, to help run it, to make it a success. And we're here 31 years later.
Still going.
We have people that have been with the Hall of Fame as volunteers 31 years. A couple of them 32 years. They were started before the building actually opened. they were helping in archiving and office work and arranging these kinds of things. And that speaks to the community and why it's still here.
Makes an executive director's job a little easier.
Absolutely.
When you've got a dedicated team of volunteers to work with.
And I use the cliche all the time. We're not trying to sell icicles to Eskimos. This is Indiana. This is basketball. People want to be a part of that. And we have some of our volunteers, people ask all the time, I don't really like basketball. I probably wouldn't be a good volunteer. We have little old ladies that really don't like basketball. It's a community pride thing. Yep. It's in Newcastle. It's in Henry County. I've lived here all my life. I want to see this successful. I'm going to be a part of it. They can't tell you who won between IU and Purdue the other night, but they want to be there to greet people, welcome them.
Just
and
like
make them
Dakota.
feel welcome.
I did see on your website that you guys have an open position.
Yes. Would you like to interview right now?
Sure.
You're going to put me on the spot now. We do, yes. So we've had a lot of exciting things happening. I think that's part of what we'll get into here. So we have a director of development open right now. We're trying to raise some money to do some even cooler things. We've just done some neat projects, and we feel like this is just scratching the surface with technology, with people's addictions to phones and iPads and technology.
Substances, anything, yeah.
We don't have a menthol exhibit, but
Yet.
Until I am on.
And so we're, like I said, I think we're on the cusp. We've done some really cool things here over the winter, and we're trying to do a lot more of that. It only takes money, right? I had a guy tell me, an exhibit company, hey, if we had $5 million, we could do something really cool here. And I said, yeah, if only we had $5 million.
So what's the experience like? If somebody's listening to this and doesn't know what it is to visit a high school basketball Hall of Fame, somebody rolls up on Trojan Lane, named after our high school team here, and they roll up to the Hall of Fame. They're greeted by a flag plaza and a big basketball etched into the concrete. What's their experience? What happens?
So, as you mentioned, there's the flags out front that we fly each year, representative of state champions and state runner-up high school teams. Our brick courtyard, which is the shape of the basketball you referenced, which, let me just say, was a genius fundraising idea. These 31 years later and $1.2 million, people have paid to have their names or their school's name or their team that won a sectional engraved in bricks. So we have,
and it lives on forever out there for them to come
we
visit.
have a courtyard there of 6,000 bricks. We are still selling them. We are still adding them all the time. It gives people not only a sense of pride that they helped donate, it gives people a reason to come back. And so we get people who, hey, I purchased a brick 30 years ago, or my grandfather was part of a team that has a brick here. It's the first piece to start to lure people back. And you could spend literally a couple of hours out there walking around. Oh, there's a Larry Bird brick. Oh, wow. Hey, there's a brick for Bob Knight. Oh, there's Kent Benson. There's Steve Alford. And it's laid out geographically from where they were in the state, where they're from. Yeah. So
you can find the East Central Indiana bricks.
You could literally stroll East Central Indiana, as you would imagine, kind of outgrew its own geographical territory. But yeah, you could literally stroll the state, and as you're walking down over Evansville, you'll see the names of people from that area.
I'm going to find in Lebanon. I'm going to find a Rick Mount brick.
Rick Mount, yeah, absolutely. So that's
in the region. I'm going to find my Dan Dockage brick and all of those. Yeah,
very well could be. And like I said, what a cool thing is. When people do it in honor of a team, like they were on a sectional championship team, or the only team in school that has the best record in school history, all those kinds of things. And like we have a group of guys from the region. I think it was either Calumet or Whiting. Like every 5 years they come back. They've got a brick. They all chipped in for the brick. And every 5 years it's just like, hey, let's get in the car and go down to Newcastle and see what's new in the museum. It's a genius idea.
Now I know my brother is watching in the in this chat, and I'm pretty sure he needs to go buy a brick for his Salvation Army championship team from 2 years ago.
I think so, and just preemptively buy one for Will.
The Rose City, whatever the heck they called themselves.
I don't know.
We'll be in the office tomorrow morning. We'll be glad to take your calls.
Be able to take your calls.
I feel like this is operators
are standing by.
Yes, absolutely.
Zach says that Zach Burcham, producer, says his is closer to Turkey Run State Park. So apparently he's outgrown so much that he may be west of 31.
Depending on timing of when a brick was purchased for someone from Newcastle, Henry County, or any of the surrounding counties,
you're in there somewhere.
I don't want to use the word outsourced, but yeah, they've been moved elsewhere, or not moved, I should say. Once you're in a spot,
you're locked in.
Spot.
Yes,
but
How many more spots could possibly be available?
Yeah, is this like the Borg Warner Trophy where we have to expand it from time to time?
They did expand that, I think, in the early 2000s. Originally, the bricks with engraved messages and names was just the inside of the state of Indiana. Now we've gone to the outside. It's the seams of the basketball. And so now, if you're from Newcastle, for instance, and you come and say, hey, I want a brick,
you're on the
Henry
scene.
County's out of space, but we'll put you over here with other Henry County folks on the outside.
Now, you said that people come back from time to time. We have our brick there. We're going to come back and see what's new. What are the most, what is the favorite attraction that you've seen?
Yeah, we
And
didn't
also,
get into the doors yet. We're still in a parking lot on the
Yeah.
tour. I'm sorry.
No. I think it's my fault. I probably
and also,
went too
what
long
is
there.
your favorite?
Personal. So I think I would break it down as saying that there are some of the tried and true staples of the Hall of Fame that were there 31 years ago that are still there today. So when you talk about like most popular, we have the last second shot. So if you haven't been there, it's quarter operated because we got to make a buck or two here or there. Had a kid shoot $10 worth of shots last week, actually. You drop a quarter in the slot, ball comes out, the clock starts winding down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you hit the shot before 0, the crowd goes wild, the scoreboard changes. We've got the blue ribbon that you take home that says I hit the game-winning shot at the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame. That's been there since day one, and it will always be there, I'm here to say. That's really popular. Whether you're 5 years old or 105 years old, everybody wants to be the Bobby Plump or the Keith Smart or whoever it was that hit a game-winning shot. Everybody wants to do that. So that's always been there. As far as I can see, always will be there. As time has evolved, we've added more interactive things. So we have, for instance, in our enshrinement gallery where all the inductees, the best of the best players, coaches, broadcasters, everybody else, there are kiosks so that in addition to their drawing on the wall, you can pull up other photos, other information. There's some interactivity there. We have something that's become really popular called You Make the Call. You're the Dick Vitale. You're the Jerry Baker. You're the broadcaster.
You're the Kevin Lee.
The Kevin Lee. My man. Your man.
I love Kevin
Lee. Who got to start at WMDH here in town.
Absolutely. I always tell people I've been listening to Kevin Lee literally my entire life.
Yeah.
I'm a kid, and he's on 1550 over here, and then he's on MS, and now he's on NBC Sports.
Yes.
Kevin Lee for literally 30 years I've been listening.
And a super awesome guy. So the You Make the Call are famous Indiana high school games and clips, all the way back to Bobby Plump and Milan in 1954 up to some games in the early 2000s, where you get to see the original TV version of the play with the announcers, and then you get to record. The second time around, you see video, no audio, and you get to record in a microphone the play-by-play of that.
Oh, that's cool.
And so, again, that's something we added 12 years ago, and that's become really popular. We have really, really cool artifacts, I've been taught to say. I tell everybody I've always been a basketball guy. I've only been a museum guy for 12 years. So we have really cool stuff.
Here's my shoes.
State champion trophies from schools that have closed. We have
cool.
one of the Milan 1954 rings. Short, but I think cool story is the principal at Milan High School in 1954 is a guy named Cale Hudson, who was originally from Newcastle.
Awesome.
He was like 28 or 29 years old as principal when they won that year. Wow. He ended up moving out to Nebraska to become a school administrator out there. And when moving and the Hall of Fame coming to his hometown of Newcastle, he donated his ring, his Milan 1954 state championship ring that we have.
Now, I will say that if you're listening from out of state and you're not familiar with Milan or 1954, the movie Hoosiers, which is filmed partially in Knightstown, Indiana, but it's Gene Hackman and Barbara Hershey, 1986-ish, I think, was the year. That movie is absolutely the centerpiece of Indiana high school basketball and the nostalgia that folks look back to now. So that's like a very important formative portion of.
I didn't factor into our international audience this evening. I'm sorry, but yeah. I mean that Milan team is the rough basis for Hoosiers, and the small school beats the big school. And again, being in the 1950s, it was an era when high school basketball was king, absolutely, unquestionably king in Indiana.
So Tell me about the process to get into the Hall of Fame, because I know it's been.
You pay $5 and we let you in.
No, I mean to be inducted.
Smart ass answer. I'm sorry.
Yes. It's only $5. That's the greatest value in all of the South Side of Newcastle.
Wow,
I'd like to think more than just the South Side of Newcastle, but I'm biased. Seriously, you go to other museums, you're going to pay $15, $20 in New York, $50.
Absolutely.
$5. We like to keep it the same price as a ticket to a high school game.
So Larry Parks is from Arlington, Indiana. And I know that I think Greg Doyle took up the writing banner for him and kind of made it a story for a few years and shed some light on to the process. And it was interesting to me that you have somebody that comes and speaks on your behalf, just like in the NFL getting in the Hall of Fame. You have a committee and a presenting process as to how somebody you induct your class.
Yeah. You don't have to have somebody speak on your behalf. Larry Bird got in on his own merits and was unquestioned. But there is an opportunity for somebody to come state their case. It's challenging in the way that for the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, everybody on Sundays, even back in the old days when you only had CBS and NBC, everybody saw the Steelers, the Cowboys, the Packers. I mean, nationwide, you saw them.
People didn't know the Moreland Bobcats.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting to. Is Larry Parks played at Arlington High School.
Yep.
And half the people who hear Arlington think it's a high school in Indianapolis, not in Rush County.
It's gone now, right? It's
literally
so many of these schools were consolidated in the 50s, 60s, and 70s into larger corporations. So there's nobody left to be their voice.
So, in fairness, and what I think is incredibly fair, our voters on our board of directors and people heavily involved in the Hall of Fame, they're from all parts of the state. They're from all different age groups and eras. But again, if I live in South Bend, Arlington never played anywhere near me.
Right.
And so we do have a meeting, a public opportunity for someone to come in and speak on behalf of someone. Here's who this person was, here's what they accomplished. And that starts our process. That begins in September. It's a 2-month process, a number of different levels and meetings and so on and so forth until ultimately in November they're selected. And then we publicly announce them in December.
At the big Hall of Fame Classic weekend?
Just before the Hall of Fame Classic.
That's the celebration.
December,
time. Yeah,
we're going to announce our new inductees, and then we're going to have our tournament and make it a big basketball month. Absolutely. There's a lot more that goes into the induction process, but, to keep it simple and not tedious, that's how that works. You have to be nominated.
I don't think you ever told me what your favorite exhibit was.
I'm good at dodging questions or getting distracted. If I had menthol gum, maybe I would have stayed on topic.
Right.
My favorite, that's like asking, if your favorite child of a parent. I know
what my favorite kid is.
You have one. Yeah, right. Yeah, I get that. As soon as I said that, I realized that wasn't germane to your situation. But
hey, what's your favorite Hall of Fame? You only have one, so it's the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame.
Yeah. We have a lot of cool stuff. That Milan ring. I mean, for insurance purposes, we have to value things every so often. Like that's significant. So many of our things are irreplaceable. Whether somebody would pay us $10,000 for it or throw it in the trash, irreplaceable.
You can't get another one.
It's never going. Yes, exactly. There's not another one like it anywhere in existence, and you can't reproduce anything like that. We have the 1969 Indianapolis Washington State Championship trophy. That's the team that George McGinnis and Steve Downing and Wayne Pack, all three played professional basketball. So 3 pro players on one high school team. They were undefeated, state champions. They are definitely in the conversation, one of the top 2, 3, 4 high school teams in the history of Indiana. Indianapolis, Washington closed as a high school for a while. And in that process, that trophy became ours. And it is literally the largest trophy we have. It's like 4 feet tall.
Wow.
So I always just kind of
how does that change?
I'm partial to that right there because that's cool.
Does that change? The IHSAA decides what the trophy looks like each year, or does the school have something commissioned? How does that? I'm sure different eras have different things.
It's mostly been through the IHSAA because they're going to give the trophy to whomever wins, and so there have been different styles from throughout the years, and that trophy just again astounds me. I don't think it's quite 4 feet tall, but it's 40-some inches tall, and it's just like
that is wild.
Yeah, and it's just it's got the figurine at the top with the ball, and it's just like there's something about that stands out. That I'm not going to say it's my favorite thing. I love it a lot.
Now Jeremiah mentioned that whenever the location was chosen for Newcastle. The building was built. The vice president came to the grand opening. There have been other notable visitors and high-profile visitors across the years. So give us some stories about those.
Probably the most high profile was Aaron Dickin, who came about a year ago.
Wow, you met Aaron Dickin?
Did he still have hair, or is it? It was.
No, it was.
I've been trying to get Aaron on the show for a while.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll get you in touch with his people.
Maybe check at the Hall of Fame.
No, that's obviously a cool part of our organization is the people that are involved, the people that are inducted. So over the years, Dan Quayle was the sitting vice president and was here for the ribbon cutting grand opening ceremonies in 1990.
Did he buy a brick?
I don't think he bought a brick. Here's why. The gentleman who was the president of the Hall of Fame when it opened here is a guy named Bob Strait, was a guy named Bob Strait. He was the coach at Huntington High School. He cut Dan Quayle from the high school basketball team.
no.
So he cut Dan Quayle in high school off the basketball team and then talked him into coming back for this big museum.
That's hilarious. Wow.
Listen, you're not cut out to play bench guard.
Right.
But you can be my vice president.
Yeah, maybe politics will work out for you, kid. There are tons of stories like that. And when you talk about visitors, Senator Obama came here while he was campaigning, was not yet president, but that was an ordeal. That's just before I had arrived here. But I mean, the story of how that all came to be and the Secret Service coming in. And, that's a surreal moment when somebody walks in, opens their trench coat, flashes a badge and says, I need to see every square inch of this building. And you're like, why? What's going on here?
$5, man. $5.
And it just like the rest, Mr. Obama.
John Wooden. I hope you've heard of him, Dakota. John Wooden.
If not, there's a statue you need to see down on Georgia Street.
An awkward one at that. He visited here during his life. Bob Knight was here last summer. We had a private visit with him. Governor Holcomb was here
a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
15 days ago. Again, I mean, you want to list NBA players. You want to list during the NCAA tournament this year. Fran McCaffrey, the University of Iowa head coach, his 8th grade son, came out and just
did he get the winning shot?
Well, we actually took him over to the field house and he got his own shoot around.
Oh,
and
I was just saying, was he one of the kids that spent $10 just to get it?
He didn't need $10 to hit a shot. That's for sure. He's 6'7". He's in 8th grade.
Oh my God.
And I literally went up to him and I said, how old are you? And I thought he was going to say I'm a sophomore, I'm a junior in high school. And he goes, I'm 14, I'm in 7th grade. I was like, what? And he's really good. I mean, it goes without saying.
He's got you by a foot already.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So
that's crazy.
That is one of the other unique things that we have in Newcastle is you have the Hall of Fame and then right next door you have the world's largest and finest.
Yes.
Basketball gym.
Again, largest.
Yeah. Well,
Stephen Vitito reworked it all.
That's right. He did.
Redid the seats.
Another cool thing that I just have to throw in is we're in July right now. This is our most diverse month as far as visitors and where people live and where they're coming from,
Summer
where they're traveling
vacation
to.
time.
It is. It's, the proximity on I-70, the billboards, the signs. People are tired of driving. I love basketball. Let's go stretch our legs, see this.
They tell me I have to get off the road anyway because the interstate's closed.
That's helped us lately as well. I literally had 3 or 4 groups this week say, yeah, we had to get off the interstate, so why not? But I think it was 4 years ago in the month of July, we had visitors from 27 different states just in the month of July.
Wow.
And I think people here locally think, oh, it's a nice attraction and people come from a couple counties over.
Yeah. They're going to come down from Kokomo. Yeah.
It's more than that. Just this week we had a guy who lives in LA, grew up in Philadelphia. His story was he loved Larry Bird when everybody else loved Dr. J in Philly. Everybody's got a story. Hoosiers is my favorite movie of all time. I got to come see this place. Or I love John Wooden and the UCLA championship teams. Everybody has a connection, a favorite, a draw that pulls them into Indiana.
You guys have some Wooden.
Absolutely.
As well, right? You have
he has his
uniform?
own section.
Yeah.
He has his own section. Yeah, we have different items from his career.
His own section.
Exhibit, I guess, is maybe the fancy word I should have used there.
Dakota's not questioning your use. He's just trying to figure out how big of a deal John Wooden was.
Yeah.
So John Wooden won as a coach, won about 10 consecutive titles at UCLA.
10 in 12 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Consecutive.
10 and 12 years. So
I think 8 or 9 of them were consecutive.
Yeah. Basically Tom Brady level if Mrs. Manning didn't exist.
But not a Joey Chestnut level.
Well, different. Different. Has Joey Chestnut visited yet?
That's one we got to put on our list.
Well,
Not that I'm aware of.
We need to have Joey Chestnut.
I know people with ISC that work with him on the eating contest here in town. Let's do that.
He needs to eat some Weenie World hot dogs, I think.
That would be a great
or some Henry County pothole. See how much Henry County pothole he can have in the plaza at the Hall of Fame.
I have so many questions for him. That would be such a good episode.
Story is he lives in Westfield, so you can start the booking process. But let's not distract from Chris, our valued featured guest.
Sorry, Chris.
Joey Chestnut has not been to the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame as far as I know.
We'll make that happen.
That would be sweet. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Dakota's got a new project.
Love to do that. Menthol gum, maybe. Maybe that gets him there.
Zach Burcham is in the chat, and he goes to the front of the line because he's a valued member of the team. He says we need to bring back the giant stuff on the billboard on I-70.
The giant stuff?
The shoe? Giant stuff. Yeah. There was a shoe on 70. There's a shoe in the parking lot.
So that's a common question. The shoe.
We got a lot of shoes around town.
We do. And there's an origin to those shoes.
Okay.
Which I wasn't around for, but a lot of people ask, why is there a big shoe? Where'd that come from? And you have to learn the backstory.
Came from Shaq.
It came from a billboard campaign. I'm not sure the exact year and timing, but I guess if you're driving along the interstate and you see a huge 8-foot tennis shoe on a billboard, it might catch your eye. And so that was part of the marketing campaign. And then after the campaign was over, what are we going to do with this shoe? Or I guess there's multiple parts of shoes. And so half of it, and it is a half at the Hall of Fame. People are puzzled. People are like out of their mind when they walk around behind it and see it's like, wait a minute, it's hollow? There's not a back to this shoe? It's a geocaching thing, though. It's a big deal. Geocaching, big deal.
Zach says first there was a giant basketball. Is there half of a giant basketball wandering around town, or is that now?
Zach knows more about the Hall of Fame than I do, but yes, he's correct. There was a giant basketball.
I'm not surprised.
That was for the groundbreaking. That Oscar Robertson was here, so that was 1988-ish, I believe. And so the groundbreaking was this basketball. I've only seen it in pictures, but it had to have been like 7-8 feet across.
Zach was what, 20 in 1988?
Somewhere right. He might have been 30 then.
Yeah.
And so like the ceremony, instead of like cutting a ribbon or they shoveled some dirt, but they like Oscar Robertson, Kent Benson, a lot of the local dignitaries, they pushed this ball into this big hoop. So that's what he's referencing there. But we don't have it anymore. I have no idea where it went. Somebody probably sold it on eBay.
Have you checked all your supply cabinets?
I've checked every square inch of our building. Trust you me.
After the Secret Service look through, you're quite certain
something that big doesn't slip through the cracks.
It's not there.
Yeah.
And okay, so last year there was a big story that was going on, and I believe it was in the Indy Star. And
this story just came out, right?
Well, I think that we talked about it last year with Aaron Dickin, that you guys were getting a huge donation.
Did Aaron blow our cover months in advance? Don't have him back.
Maybe it wasn't last year. Maybe it was just a few months ago.
Sticking with the story that this was just announced.
Okay. We'll go with just announced. But I'm pretty sure that this is what started the conversation of why we needed to have Chris on the show. So maybe it was more recent. But I was thinking last year. Either way, it doesn't really matter.
You know that gum just goes to your brain.
Chris,
straight in.
You guys, the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame was gifted an entire estate from two people that aren't even from Indiana.
Correct.
That is mind-blowing.
It is. I can tell you a lot of details, and you still either won't believe it or won't grasp it. I have told people, if I hadn't been in the middle of it, I wouldn't believe it either. I think, like, no way, that can't happen. That can't be true.
So
BS.
It's Ron and Charlotte Warwick.
Ron and Charlotte Warwick were their names.
Illinois.
Of Illinois. They retired to New Mexico. They lived in New Mexico for the last 12 to 15 years.
Okay.
Ron was born in Indiana, but he moved to Danville, Illinois before high school. So
what were with the Van Dykes? That's where Dick Van Dyke and Jerry Van Dyke are from.
You know a lot more than I do.
Man.
Danville, Illinois, they are?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Great.
That is some crap that Mark Brim would.
I'm just saying, there's important people are from Danville, Illinois.
I think Gene Hackman is, or from somewhere thereabouts. Anyway,
it's not material to the story.
I don't have Wikipedia in my hands here. So Ron was born in Indiana, Veedersburg, in fact, which is Fountain Central, which is over near the Illinois line. He was 13 years old when Milan won the state championship in 1954. And, 13 years old is an impressionable age. Milan was a huge story all across our state. They were the people's choice. They were the small school. They win the state. It's just this like dream come true. And so he
barely
told me,
anybody likes Muncie. So yeah.
You said it.
I work there every day. I can make these jokes.
So he like that captured something inside of him about like basketball in Indiana. Oh my gosh, this is awesome. Well, he moves to Danville, Illinois with his family before he goes to high school. So he never plays high school basketball in Indiana. Never. He goes into heavy machinery, works along the railroads, never coaches. But while he's working on the railroads, a lot of his work brings him through Indiana. And in the winters, Friday night, Saturday night, hey, I'll just go to the local high school and see a game. Like it was part of him. And, eventually, time goes on. Charlotte was his second wife. His first wife passed away. She never, that we know of, lived a day of her life in Indiana. They retired at Las Cruces, New Mexico, and they had visited the museum. My predecessor, Roger Dickinson, is a great people person. Fantastic, making people feel like $1 million, rolling out the red carpet, showing them the ropes and the red carpet behind the scenes and all this kind of stuff. And he loved basketball. They loved the museum, and they said, we'd like to support this. What options do you have? And in 2020, he passed away in 2018. In 2020, she passed away in the middle of COVID when we're trying to figure out,
how to continue.
Yeah, what are we going to do here?
What your existence is going to be.
Yeah.
Because I assume during COVID, the museum was closed as well.
We were closed for 10 out of 12 months.
Yeah,
absolutely. We weren't in peril of like closing the doors forever. But as you can imagine, that kind of puts a damper on your operations, your fundraising, so on and so forth. And so the timing was, as we've said, divine, maybe. I mean, and there are lots and lots of details. Dana Benbow wrote a story in the Indianapolis Star, just a couple of weeks ago, which tells the story quite well. There are other personal details that I'm not going to share publicly that are just as baffling, and that's why I say, it's unbelievable that these two people who essentially, everybody assumes, it must have been somebody that the biggest gift in the history of the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame must have been a guy that played in the NBA, must have been a guy who played high school basketball and became CEO of some big company, got stock options, got super rich, and just gave you some of it.
It's a blue collar worker from Illinois that retired to New Mexico
that never played in our state.
Yeah,
that's the power of Indiana basketball. That's the story that we try to. That's why we can have a facility like what we have here. Yeah.
And in the Indy Star, it said that you guys like kept in touch throughout the years. So you knew that you were going to be getting the estate money. They never told you how much it was going to be.
Right.
As far as you knew, you were getting $6,000.
Yeah. So as the timing goes, I got hired in June of 2009. They had just filed their will. Their attorney had just filed their will and their estate papers with us, like the same month that I get hired. And so, of course, Roger Dickinson, who was retiring as executive director, is like, hey, you need to know about these people. You need to know who they are. You need to know my experiences with them.
Stay in touch.
And you need to, yes, exactly. You need to not screw this up. Roger's too nice of a guy to say it that way, but that's what the message was.
Yeah, don't blow it.
Yeah, don't blow it. And so, again, it's so bizarre. They were in New Mexico. We never met face to face. They and I never met face to face. They'd come to the Hall of Fame. They'd made that decision. They wanted to give their estate, all that with Roger. Shame on me for never going out to see them. But again, as you just said, like we knew their estate was coming to us. We had no idea what the estate was going to be valued at. And so Ron was a big basketball fan. So like October, November, he would call me and, hey, how's IU going to be this year? Purdue going to be any good? Who are the high school teams that should be in contention? Any great players from Indiana playing in college this year? Just kind of broad questions like that. And that's about in Christmas time, of course, we'd exchange Christmas cards. But that was about the extent of it. And had no, again, here's what still blows my mind. If this were a state university, let's say, again, the largest gift in the history of Indiana University, the largest gift in the Hall of Fame's history are
Different worlds.
Totally different scales. But if you're going to give to Indiana University and you're going to end up making the biggest gift in the school's history, they're going to name Assembly Hall after you. They're going to name like the baseball diamond after you. They're going to name a dorm after you. They never once said, hey, what are we going to get out of this? Yep. Never said, where are you going to put our picture? Where are you going to put our name? How big are you going to promote us? There was zero ego. It was not about them. It was about basketball, Indiana, what the museum represented. You don't get that. In fundraising, you don't get that.
It sounds like they were just good people.
Yes. And as the Star story mentioned, so he passed away in 2018. She called me right away. And she said, hey, I just want to let you know, Ronnie passed away. I've already talked to the attorney, and I'm not changing anything in the estate. Like she, as best I could tell, she didn't care if IU was going to be good, if Purdue was going to be good. She wasn't a basketball fan. She was just
following his wishes.
Yes, exactly. Just following his wishes. And she lived 2 more years, and she did exactly as she had said.
So tell us about what's been able to happen since that time. COVID had you closed, essentially, or the doors closed.
Right.
So it created an opportunity for some improvements to happen before you reopen.
So probably how you heard from Aaron a year ago about some of this is she passed away, man, it was a year ago yesterday.
Wow.
How about that for some timing? So it was the first week of July, 2020, and the attorney calls me and says, hey, here we got to start this estate process, but you can't come out here. This is the other part. COVID, New Mexico had one of the most stringent quarantine and COVID policies. He said, if you do come out here, you have to stay in your hotel room for 14 days before you can meet me face to face. Like, don't do it.
Yeah.
So we do all this through email, through phone calls. So I deal with a lawyer, an attorney still have never met, a realtor I never met, a banker, a judge. Fill in the blank here.
And you've never dealt with this before. I'm sure this is brand new terrain for you.
That's the other thing I've said is other people have had parents or grandparents or siblings pass away. I've never dealt with an estate. I didn't know what I was getting into. And we still at that point, even when the attorney calls, the size of the gift in my mind was about a third of what it ended up really being. How many people are watching right now?
We got 14 on the live stream.
Yeah. Here's a detail that wasn't in the Star story. This is an exclusive to Boss Hogs. They had as much cash inside the house as we sold the house for. Again, you wouldn't believe this stuff if I sat you down and told you every single detail.
Bricks of cash.
Born in the 40s. That checks out.
You got it.
Yeah.
Yep. You got it. Yeah. So it just became this whole process. So to get back to your question, Dakota, we're in the middle of COVID. We know that this is going to be coming through. And so we get to, and about August or September, I told our board, hey, look, we're still closed anyway. We've got this gift coming. We need to be stewards of this gift. We can't just throw it in the bank and say, thank you very much, old lady and old guy.
You got to do something lasting with it.
Lasting. And if we're going to be good stewards, we want to encourage other people to make gifts that they see will make an impact.
Yep.
And so I said, hey, let's close the place down. Let's make it a mess. Let's renovate. And then let COVID pass through, and then we'll have a freshened experience when COVID is over. Pardon me. That's what we did. January and February. So we have the Hall of Fame Classic in December, which was it going to happen? Wasn't going to happen. That was its own little roller coaster of emotions. So after the Hall of Fame Classic was over, shut the place down. Contractors come in, do all kinds of dirty work. We've done some exhibit stuff as well, digital displays and exhibits, and it's a fresh, new experience for people who've been before.
Nice.
So if somebody wants to visit, how many days a week are they? Is it open? What are the hours? How does this work out?
7 days a week, baby. We're back.
Anytime.
Full strength. We are 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Mondays through Saturdays, Sunday afternoons from 1 until 5 o'clock. Our website is hoopshall.com. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram, all that fun stuff. And we just refreshed our website about a year ago, so you can get a perspective of what we have to offer and what you're going to see, what you're going to experience.
What's there was a podcast. Who kind of folks came through the podcast?
Yeah. So again, we're shut down, the museum. We can't have a lot of our events a year ago. So I actually messaged you and said, hey, you guys have this really cool podcast. I want to do start a Hall of Fame podcast. Broadcasting's in my background, so it wasn't like I was starting from scratch, but the equipment I had no clue. And it just so happens everybody else in the world was sitting at home doing nothing as well.
Yep.
So we have some really cool people in the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame and a part of our organization. So we already had some interviews that I had already done for a different project that we just repurposed the audio. So Larry Bird and Oscar Robertson and Steve Alford and Damon Bailey, George McGinnis. Those were some of the early ones that we already had kind of in the can that we just had to edit and freshen up a little bit. But then it gave me an opportunity. I got Greg Popovich on the phone one day and had a really cool conversation with him.
Dakota, for $10, who is Greg Popovich?
I have no idea. I'm not betting you $10.
There's no risk to this. Dakota, if you just knew it.
Ask if you can phone a friend.
Do you know how many names have been said during this podcast that I've just been like, mm-hmm?
If you watch the Olympics in a couple weeks, Greg Popovich is the Olympic coach. He's the head coach of the Spurs. They've won five NBA
there
champions.
25 years. He goes all the way back to I think he probably coached.
He had
Tim Duncan, and before that,
he had David Robinson.
David Robinson, yeah.
David Robinson at the back end of his career.
He's pretty much coached them for the entire existence of their NBA, less about 10 years.
Yeah,
before they're in the NBA. Anyway, sorry.
But not a lot of people know he's from Indiana.
That's right.
Originally, he graduated from Merrillville High School, and if I can plug my own podcast, the best story I thought he told on our episode was he actually grew up in East Chicago. East Chicago, Washington, and East Chicago Roosevelt were powerhouse high school basketball teams in the 60s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. So he dreamed of, as a boy, playing for East Chicago Washington High School. His parents get divorced. He moves with his mom to Merrillville, and he thinks his life is ruined because he's got to go to crappy Merrillville High School, right? But he tells it. He's a great storyteller. But, I mean, again, you get back to this guy's done everything and more in basketball in the world. He's the Olympic coach, for gosh sakes.
Yep.
And he's talking about how he thought his life was ruined when he
couldn't go to East Chicago.
10 years old because he got moved out of town to the neighboring school. So had a great episode with Brad Stevens. I think maybe if I had to pick a favorite, Matt Painter is an awesome guy and a great storyteller. So Matt Painter told awesome stories about he had a court in his backyard at his house and guys playing from all over Muncie, and just again, this isn't like, hey, what's it like to be the head coach of Purdue? How cool is that? This is like when you're growing up, all those formative experiences, and I feel like that's the bond in Indiana is everybody had a hoop or went to somewhere that had a hoop or went to the playground, and that's what that podcast series really started.
I used to say that you could be the world's best dribbler if you could dribble in your gravel driveway in Indiana, right? Like
absolutely.
If you can travel in gravel, you're great when you get to an actual court.
So funny story is Bobby Plump, hits the shot, 1954 Milan State Championship team. He's in a film we have at the museum. If you come visit, you hear him tell this story. But he says, they grew up playing in an alleyway, a gravel alleyway, suburban Milan, not even Milan, suburban Milan. Pierceville is the name of the place. Probably a place a lot like Raleigh. And he said there was a manure pile on the right. So you had to dribble left. And he said, everybody else, if you're right-handed, you just dribbled right-handed. We learned to dribble left because you weren't going to dribble the ball over into the manure pile or even near to the manure pile.
Yep.
So yeah, absolutely. If you can dribble on gravel, you've got all kinds of advantages.
And if folks want to volunteer, that's the other side of this too, right? So a lot of folks are listening from Henry County. If you want to volunteer, how do they do it? Jump on the website, pop in?
Yep. We have a contact us section on the website, but just as good to stop in person, just to see the place, see what we've done with it, talk to some of our staff. And like I said earlier, we have volunteers who are just as bad as Dakota at knowing basketball people.
They don't know who Greg Popovich is either.
But they are amazing people. And it's about hometown pride. It's about wanting to be it's the Hoosier hospitality, a welcoming face, greeting people into the community. And, this sounds a little silly on the surface, but I've witnessed it enough that, like, having somebody there when they say, hey, this place was great. Now, where should we go eat lunch? Like, just the local word of mouth. Hey, you need to go get the tenderloin here or try the salad down there. Like, it's a cool experience. And
This is the tough question. Where does he send them? He's going to dodge it. I can see it already. He's going to say, "Oh, well, the park's great, but so is." And then of course, we love Stacks and Mancino's is right down the road. They're pretty good too.
The question is, what are you in the mood for?
Yeah.
Do you want some home cooking? Do you want
I would usually
pizza?
be like Lee's famous recipe.
So true story. Mike Ford is a great friend of mine, and obviously Lee's is just down Trojan Lane from us. So every morning at like 10:30, the smell of fried chicken just wafts. Because we're downwind from them. It's torture. It's
what a temptation!
Absolutely torture. Yes.
That would suck.
Yeah, it smells great every day, but you can't eat Lee's every single day for lunch.
You can.
Yes. Yes.
Your heart just
cardiologist will not recommend it.
Well, that's right. That's also right across the street.
That's true.
I'll be honest.
It's like its own little complex.
Medical attention is very, very close.
I work somewhat frequently with folks from Noblesville, Carmel area, and every time that they're in Newcastle, it's like, is that Lee's place still open? Yes, it is.
I have a guy.
They know Lee's China Castle.
It's funny you would say that. I have a good friend. He lives in Fort Wayne. They have a Lee's up there, and he lived in Indy. He lived same thing, Fishers, Carmel area for a long time, and he would literally come over here just to get Lee's. Drive past KFC and all these other chicken places because this was the closest Lee's he could get.
KFC is manure compared to Lee's. Let's be honest.
Wow.
Lee's is
There are fine
so
folks that work at
far
KFC.
out of the ballpark. But listen, it's not the people who work there. It's not their fault.
We are never getting our Yum Corporation sponsorship.
They are following the 11 herbs and spices recipe.
We were
just
negotiating. We were on the 2-yard line, and it's all
cooker,
just gone.
Then deep fried 2-step process that Lee's has dialed in.
All right, we are at that time of the show where we need to start wrapping it up before Dakota costs us any more future sponsorships. Chris Stayton, welcome back to the building, man. What do we need? What's been going on? Do you have anything to plug? Are you selling or buying anything?
He's not on the camera, but he's got a beard now.
He's gone Amish since he moved to Matt Painter's.
I have gone
Matt
Amish.
Painter South.
Let's see. The only thing that I
He
really
was
have
from Yorktown, right? Yeah.
He went to Delta.
Delta, yeah, okay.
only thing I have to plug is the Kelly Cup, which is the ECHL championship, is now back in Indiana. Unfortunately, it's with Fort Wayne, not the Indy Fuel, but hey, it's in Indiana, so it's home. That's all I got.
That's it?
That's it.
Tampa won again. That's 3 championships in a row, 2 in hockey, 1 in football.
Yep. Tampa did win back-to-back.
And that's 10 seconds of hockey. You're going to be back with us next week as well.
I will be. You guys have me for one more week.
You have to bring the heat next week.
And then I disappear. And you'll never know when you'll see me again.
Chris, did we leave anything scattered? Did we cover it all? Anything to clean up? We're good?
Just come see us. Again, I hear the comment all the time for people who are here in Newcastle that they came for the grand opening and haven't been back since. And I get basketball is not life to everybody. But I also would like to think that our museum is a little bit Indiana history, a little bit socioeconomic. It's a lot of things, not just who scored the most points and who won the most games.
Well, and you can make a day of it, right? You can come to Knightstown, you can come to Newcastle, you can just visit these different spots in Henry County and
absolutely
and fill it.
I mean, we're a basketball community, no question about it. There are a lot of cool experiences. There's this, I call it like the backyard phenomenon. Yeah, we'll drive to Cincy. Yeah, we'll go to Fishers. Yeah, we'll go to Chicago, but we're not going to do anything here in Newcastle. Get your grandkids, bring your kids. Whether you spend 45 minutes or 4 hours, I think you'll pick up something, you'll enjoy something, and have an appreciation for it.
Awesome. We're glad you're here.
Thank you.
Dakota?
All right, I have a couple things. First, Chris, thank you for coming on the show today. It was good, full of information. The other thing is my wife, Audrey, she will be at the Whitetail Tree Farm next weekend selling goods from her shop, tumblers and things of the like. But they have a bunch of vendors going out there next weekend, and that starts at 1 p.m., and that's a good time, so make sure you go out there. Also,
I don't know, man.
I totally just forgot.
You're just looking at me.
Oh, I know. Make sure that you hop on patreon.com/BossHogOfLiberty because Chris over here has been dropping a bunch of inside jokes about menthol gum throughout the show, and you're not going to know what that is unless you sign up at patreon.com/BossHogOfLiberty. That's where you can go to figure out what the heck that was all about.
All right. Thursday, July 15th, 5:30 p.m. Before this show, there is a charity pie auction in the Schuler Show Arena during the Henry County 4-H Fair. The junior leaders that I'm associated with, the 4-H Junior Leader Program, These kids are all making pies. They'll be judged, and you have a chance to come, and they may sell for $40. They may sell for $200. But you can come down and support the 4-H Foundation scholarships and buy a pie, handmade, homemade from these kids, and it's always a good time. So
Do
come
I
on
have
down.
to actually be there?
It's a live in-person auction.
In person.
In person.
Can I have you
5:30.
bid for me?
I could, but we can just pop in there. We'll do the pie thing real quick, and then we'll come back to the stadium.
It's like right around dinner time.
You can come down and get a walking taco out of the fair booth.
Why
Get
would I
yourself-
do that
get yourself
when
a-
we have a Lee's.
or roll in, get your Lee's fried chicken. Come on down, buy a pie, support the kids, and then come back down here and do the show. Same. It's a Thursday night
They're all
opportunity.
homemade.
99% of them. There might be a cheater or two in the group. They are associated with me, so they may. There might be one or two.
You're not going to
but they'll
guarantee,
be.
but they're supposed to be.
They're supposed to be homemade.
yeah.
Yes.
That's
but
what counts.
there's a Dakota Davis or two in the group that will say, you know what, I'm going to Kroger and I'm going to buy this and
My grandma.
see what happens.
I'm going to rat out my grandma right here. My grandma, I watched her do this. She used to buy pre-made pie crusts, and then she would put them in the oven for a few minutes until they got soft, and then she would take them out and work the crust so that it looked like finger impressions instead of the factory impressions. And then she would fill it with the pie filling. And
Well,
bake
that would be American production. That's a value added process. So she has changed the product. It's
She said it tastes no different and it saves a lot of time.
Yeah.
You guys don't ever know.
I was going to say, I mean, isn't the taste like the end product?
yeah. I think that counts.
That's probably true.
She reworked it. I mean, it's not like she bought a pie and
There's effort
to pull it out of the freezer. All right, I want to talk basketball with Chris just for a second. Rick Carlisle's coming back.
Yeah.
Should we be excited about this as Pacers fans? I feel like
I'm optimistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if it's grumpy old guy that nobody's going to like anymore, but to me it brings back the retro feel.
I think if nothing else, it's harkens back to the Reggie Miller,
Larry Bird era,
Ron Artest era. Pardon me.
Chris Mullin,
I do know who
Dale Davis.
Reggie Miller is.
Antonio Davis,
Rick Smits.
Yeah.
Travis Best.
I don't know.
I can
who
name
Rick
that
Smits.
roster.
Yeah.
I don't know Travis Betts.
I'm optimistic. I don't have some like magical inside information or anything, but obviously he won a world championship with the Mavericks. Of course, he had Dirk on his team, and he's had some good talent there. But I've got to think that after the kind of malaise of the last couple of years, just general
It's been very mediocre.
Yes, there's nothing worse in professional sports than apathy amongst your fans, and I feel like at least the last 2 seasons have been pretty apathetic as far as people not really caring about the Pacers that much.
And they haven't been on television.
Well, yeah, we can get into the whole Bally Sports
it's been
thing
difficult
too.
to see them as well.
That's true. That's true. But it's not like they were winning at such a consistent level that I'm going to find them anyway, anyhow. It's exciting. I think again, if you're in college sports, whether Purdue's going to be outstanding in men's basketball this year. IU with Coach Woodson in is probably going to get things turned around fairly quickly, it seems like. Again, I'm not a homer for either of those two teams, but yeah, there's a lot of cool stories that hopefully this winter, and we can actually go to games again. If you can get your hands on a ticket, go out and support the teams. I think it's going to be a good winter and good season for a lot of Indiana franchises.
Got a lot to look forward to this fall as we get into basketball season. And the NBA Finals are just now wrapping up. Mid-July, we're almost done. All right, with that, we thank you guys very much. It's been great to have Chris here. Looking forward to both of the Chris's here, honestly. We'll see you guys next Thursday night.